waste management hierarchy. That's what
Sorry,
today's class.
I think your mic is muted. We can't hear you.
Okay, am I audible now? Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can
Yeah,
hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So we'll be talking about waste management and waste management hierarchy this evening. Basically, we want to explore what waste management is all about, the activities and actions that constitute or that can be termed to mean waste management. Also, we are going to be looking at some technologies, some techniques we can use to better manage our waste, and also how those techniques, how they scale up on the waste management hierarchy. So those are some of the things we are going to be exploring this evening, and I would like us to ask questions as much as we can, and let's make the class a bit interactive. Thank you, everyone. So I'll be sharing my screen very soon, but before I do that, I would like to ask um, from us, what do we when we hear the word waste management, what comes to mind? When you hear waste management, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Anyone? Can anyone please
I
respond?
please can you hear me?
Okay, thank you. I can hear you. I can hear you.
So I think waste management has to do with a lot of things actually, particularly the proper disposal of waste and recycling and yeah, things like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So proper recycling of proper disposal of waste and recycling. Thank you. You are correct. Those are some of the things that we we explore when we say we want to manage our waste. We look at how to properly dispose them and some other things we can use in order to do what? To make our waste a bit more effective. Now, I'm going to be sharing my screen, so we'll follow on in the lesson module. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen now. So we're going to be, so can everybody see this? Can everybody see the screen?
Yes,
Yes,
yes, I can see your
Okay,
screen.
okay, beautiful. Thank you very much. So we are talking about waste management and the waste management hierarchy. Now, like I said, what we aim to achieve now is to get a proper knowledge about what waste management is all about, and also look at techniques to manage our waste, and also see how those techniques, how they scale up, how they are, how preferential they are on a scale of preference when we look at the waste management hierarchy. So very quickly, our objective, like I said, you are we are going to be able to recognize and discuss waste, different types of waste, form of waste, and different waste management techniques. You know, we cannot talk about waste management without talking about waste. So very quickly, let's look at the introduction. We are going to do a brief introduction in the outline. We are going to talk about waste management hierarchy, and then conclusion. So before we start talking about waste management, the first thing we need to look at is what is waste. Now, we know that in urban population, there is a rising demand for food. Now, this is basically based on the fact that if you look at your urban regions, you will discover that there is a lot of people in urban regions. The population there is quite high, and with increase in population, there is an increase in demand for food, demand for other essentials. And the more you consume these things, the more waste is generated. So those are some of the things that they are letting us know, that when you have an increase in population, there is always an increase in corresponding demand for food, for other essentials, all the other things you need to live a good life, there is always an increase in demand. And with that increase in demand, it leads to increase in waste generation. Now, what is waste? Now, waste is a natural consequence or inevitable byproduct of both natural and anthropogenic activities. Now, when we talk about anthropogenic, we are talking about man-made. Anything that is man-made, that is man-caused, is anthropogenic. So all human activities lead to waste generation. There is nothing you do that you would not generate one form of waste or another, from eating to general hygiene to walking and every other thing you do. Human activities would always lead to waste generation. Even in nature, you will discover that even in nature, there is waste generation. For example, during the autumn period where you have the leaves falling, when those leaves fall, they are a waste because they fall on the ground and you have to gather it up, sweep it up, and dispose of it. So natural phenomenon also generates waste. So we are looking at the examples here in manufacturing. Every time we throw a product away and everything, all those actions we take, they lead to waste generation. And that is the reason why we have to be more conscious about how we manage our waste. We have to realize that every action that we take, either your action or your inaction, will lead to waste generation. And as such, it's important for us to take very concrete steps. It's important to take concrete steps in making sure that we do what? We manage our waste in order to mitigate the effects to the environment. So majority of waste generated by man end up in the landfill or dump sites. There is nobody here that would not say that they don't have an idea of a dump site, because everything that we generate as waste, it has to end up somewhere. It has to end up somewhere, and most times they end up on the landfill or in the dump sites, especially in developing countries. It is worthy of note. We have those issues, especially in developing countries. So let's quickly move. Now, waste. Waste are materials and objects that people put in bins because they do not need them again. Now, this is the simplest form of explaining what waste is. Basically, you discard something because you do not have any use for it anymore. It doesn't matter what that thing is. It can be anything. Anything that you discard because you don't have use for them anymore is regarded as waste. Sometimes we say they are materials that have served their primary purpose. Because after you have used it for what you intended it for, whatever is left, you don't need it anymore. And as such, they dispose of such things in the waste bin. Sometimes people call waste garbage, they call it rubbish, junk, litter, refuse, trash, and other names. For the most part, most people see waste as what? Useless. They see waste as useless, they see waste as something they don't need anymore. And they just, sometimes people see it as something that is cluttering the house. I know that some of us, when we want to do maybe a cleanup in our homes, in our rooms and everything, there are a lot of materials that even though they are still okay, they are still good, but because you don't have any need for it anymore and you feel that it's just causing a litter in the house or it's cluttering up everywhere, you just decide to do what? To throw it away. Those are some of the things that we are talking about. So when you see something as worthless or unnecessary or useless, you would always tend to do what? To throw it away. So waste can also be materials that are faulty, like I said, something that you are not using anymore. Maybe it has developed a fault and it's just there, it's just causing up a litter in the house. And you decide to do what? To get rid of it. These are some practical examples that show the definition of waste. So if I'm going to ask you that what are waste, then they will be what? Materials that have served their what? Their primary purpose, and you no longer have use for them. And as such, they are what? They are disposed. So that is waste. Now, we want to explore the types of waste. Now, before we do this, I would like to ask us a question. Now, in our own experience or in our own opinion, what are some of the types of waste that we know? Yes, anyone? Can anyone list any type of waste that they know?
Okay, so I think some type of ways that we have.
Okay. So I
Okay,
know
I'm
that
with you.
there are
I'm with
waste
you.
there's some waste that don't decompose. So if I want to group them, I would say
Okay.
ones that decompose, like plants and food items, while
Okay.
some materials like plastics and other that don't decompose.
Thank you very much. That's a brilliant answer. Yes, someone else was saying something.
Oh, okay, yes. Some of the ways include papers from products, especially plastics, bottles, uh, from food items also, and we
Okay.
also waste water.
Beautiful. That's good. Okay. Thank you very much. All the answers you've given, they are all correct. However, you will notice that for all for all the examples you've given, you can always classify them into broadly three kinds of waste or three types of waste. So we want to look at that broad classification first, then we'll now start looking at it one after the other. Now, the types of waste that we have are three. Now, the first one is liquid waste. The first one is liquid waste. And I want to thank the people that answered. Those are very brilliant answers. Someone said wastewater. Now, wastewater is a form of liquid waste. So any form of liquid residue that is dangerous to people and the environment, and it's in what? Liquid form, is a liquid residue. Always remember that. It's in liquid form. So example of liquid waste are human and animal excreta, household wastewater, cooking oil, fat grease, other things. So all those wastes and effluents that are in liquid form and they are dangerous to humans, they are dangerous to people, they are dangerous to life forms, because not only humans are these things dangerous to, they can also be very dangerous to animals, especially marine life. When you can see the picture there. When this kind of effluent get into water bodies, they contaminate the water and they are so hazardous to the marine life in the water. And most times we end up fishing from contaminated rivers and consuming those fishes, thereby creating a hazard for humans as well. So liquid waste cannot be easily picked up and removed from the environment. That is one thing that makes it dangerous. Unlike solid waste that you can easily pick your plastic bottle, you can easily pick up paper. But liquid waste, most times, even when it's poured on the ground, on the soil, it tends to percolate. It goes into the soil and it begins to cause harm to the environment. So it's very, very important to manage our liquid waste properly. Like I said, it has the ability to flow into water bodies and affect the composition of water. Not only water, it can seep into the soil and pollute other sources. So it can cause drinking water also to be contaminated. So those are some of the reasons why it is very important to manage our waste, especially liquid waste. So thank you for the example of wastewater. Wastewater is a good example of liquid waste. Also, effluents from industries. That's a good example of liquid waste. Thank you very much. So the next one we are going to be examining is solid waste. Now, like the word said, solid. These are wastes that are not in liquid or gaseous form. They are non-liquid and non-soluble materials. So and you can find solid waste all around you. You can find it all around you. Papers, plastics, food. Like someone said, biodegradable waste, that is waste that decompose, and non-biodegradable waste. Those are waste that do not decompose. So, example of all these solid waste, I think someone's mic is on. There is a mic that is on. Please mute your mic. Thank you. I think someone's mic is on. Okay, let's continue. So we have food residue, we have food waste, paper textile, plastics, tires, scrap metals, and so on and so forth. I'm sure if you look around you, there are a lot of examples of solid waste that you can come up with. Ranging from the food we eat, sometimes the clothes we wear, a lot of things, the books we use and everything. So it's very, very important to manage solid waste. If not, they will begin to attract different kind of animals and rodents. So it's very, very important. These things breed diseases. So it's very important to manage our solid waste. And the final one in the types of waste is your gaseous waste. So basically, like the name says, there are wastes that are released in the form of gas. Now, when we use our automobiles, when in factories, in industries, when we put on our generators, our generating sets and the likes, they release gaseous waste. And those gaseous waste, they mix with gases in the atmosphere and cause serious environmental hazards. Some of the things they cause, gases like carbon dioxide, for example. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. It's a greenhouse gas. And what does that mean? It adds to the depletion of the ozone layer. And by extension, it causes global warming, which is the warming of the Earth's atmosphere. So it's very, very important that we properly manage these wastes, be it liquid, solid, or gaseous, because they have the ability to cause untold harm to our environment, be it on the ground or up above in the sky. So now that we've seen the different types of waste, the next step is to examine the sources of waste. Now, when we talk about sources of waste, we are basically talking about where are these wastes coming from?
Thank you.
Where are these wastes coming from? Who are the producers of the waste? Where are the wastes coming from? So that's what we are talking about when we talk about sources of waste. This is showing us like a broad view. This is showing us a broad view of the kind of waste that are generated within a municipality, basically within your local government area, within your wherever you are. When in your area, if you look around, you will see that every waste that is here is generated within your municipality or your local government area. You will discover that all the kind of waste here, they are what? They are generated. Now look at example, we have biodegradable waste, which someone talked about before. Those are our food waste, our greens, our grasses, and our kitchen waste. Then we have recyclable waste. Can we try to get the person to mute?
So I think the admin can mute her because maybe she's busy with something. If one admin can mute.
I cannot, but someone else needs to, because it's really
41 units for 10,000.
Whoever is the admin of this core can actually.
If I buy
Because I've tried to, I can't.
72 and something. So before
It's
I will
really
just buy
distracting me.
10,000. So
It is
that
occurring with the class. I'm finding it difficult to follow with the noise.
Okay, just give me a minute. Let me try and sort this out.
Yàtọ̀ sáwọn píríntà tó ṣe máa ní gbogbo wọn náà. Ó pàwọ̀ èèyàn ní tó bá pé wọ́n pariwo tó
Okay, I think that's settled now. I think we can continue. Sorry guys, we have to take care of that so that let's continue, please. I'm sure everyone can see my screen. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So
Yes, we can.
like I was saying, thank you very much. The kind of waste that you generate around you, if you look within your municipality, you will discover that every waste that is captured here is actually being generated from your kitchen waste to your recyclable waste to domestic, commercial, and industrial waste to medical waste and inert waste. As long as you have hospitals, you have place companies, you have hotels and eateries and the like, every kind of waste that is here is generated within a municipality. Now, like the note underneath says, a regular solid waste comprises of plastic, textile, paper, glass, and all these other things that you can see here. So we're not going to dwell too much on that. It's just to show you the kind of waste that is being generated. Now, we're talking about sources of waste. The first one, we're looking at commercial waste. Now, commercial waste can vary from depending on the businesses that they run. For example, like I said, hotels and eateries, big eateries and the likes, they generate commercial waste, basically. The same thing for malls, markets, big markets, and the like. So when you look at commercial waste, there is a mixture of both organic and inorganic waste. They generate both organic and inorganic waste from papers, from packaging materials, from plastics to food and other items. If you look at industrial waste, for industrial waste, mostly they generate non-biodegradable waste for the most part. They don't generate organic waste much. They mostly generate inorganic waste because in the process of production, they generate waste from what they are producing. They generate, as you can see in the picture in this slide. So one source of waste is commercial, another one is industrial. Now, this is healthcare waste. Like I said, anywhere there is a hospital, you will definitely generate healthcare waste. Now, healthcare waste can vary maybe from drugs to blood, human tissue, and all those things. Even the normal general waste, because patients and doctors and everyone, they would eat, they would do some certain things which are not particularly healthcare or medical waste. So you find different kind of waste also in healthcare centers. Then we have the wastewater and sewage and effluent. Now this one refers to wastewater from maybe human and animal excrement and all those things, and you have sewage too. Then you have effluent from companies. When they discharge the waste from their chemical processes and everything, when they discharge the what is supposed to be the wastewater. They discharge it out into probably for some that take safety serious, they might store it in maybe storage facilities or storage plants or storage tanks, and find a proper way to dispose of them. But most of these companies, they just discharge it into small water bodies and things like that, and it contaminates the water bodies. So those are some of the sources of waste we can see. Then we also have agricultural waste, which is waste from farm, be it crops or livestock. The waste they generate can be termed as agricultural waste. Then we have construction waste also. Construction waste. Now, let me go back a bit so that we can see. We've talked about 6 here: commercial, industrial, healthcare, wastewater, sewage and effluent. Then we have agricultural waste, and we have construction waste. Can we think of maybe 2 or 3 more sources that we've not covered yet before we move forward? Anyone? Can we think of 2 or 3 sources of waste that you feel we've not covered yet? Anybody?
Oh, okay.
Let's
Have
think.
we talked about
Okay, I'm with you.
from
Have we talked about what?
greenhouse waste from greenhouses?
Waste from greenhouses. Well, waste from greenhouses, they tend to fall under agricultural waste. If you are talking about the agricultural greenhouse, then they tend to fall under agricultural waste, because for the most part it's all about plants and greens too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I,
thank you
I
very
think
much.
I think anthropogenic waste majorly, but I think it's like it's together.
I can't hear you, please.
I said I think anthropogenic waste, but I think it's like they can
Well,
lump into together.
yeah, anthropogenic, like I said earlier, anthropogenic simply means man-made. That's the meaning of anthropogenic. So when you are talking about anthropogenic waste, you are talking about all the kind of waste that man produces. You understand? So, and everything that we've been talking about since, it's mostly anthropogenic. From commercial to industrial to healthcare to effluent to agricultural to construction waste, all these things are created by man. It's all these things fall under anthropogenic sources of waste. You know, I gave you an example earlier about a natural source of waste. Now, a natural source of waste can be maybe leaves falling during autumn, when trees shed their leaves. Those are natural. Sometimes natural disasters too, they can cause a lot of waste. For example, maybe an earthquake or something like that. It's a natural disaster, but it generates a lot of waste. You understand? So sometimes natural waste can occur naturally, but most of the waste that we deal with most times are waste that we cause by ourselves, and those are anthropogenic sources of waste. So everything that we've been discussing about, from commercial to industrial to healthcare to effluent to agricultural and construction, all those sources of waste are anthropogenic. They are man-made. They are man-caused. I hope you understand. Are you with me?
We are with
Yeah.
you,
I hope
sir.
I'm still on. Okay, okay. I just wanted to be sure I'm audible. All right, thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you very much. All right, let's see some other ones, some other responses that we got. Now we have nuclear waste. Nobody talked about nuclear waste. These are waste generated from nuclear plants, and they are highly radioactive and very dangerous. We didn't talk about, nobody could give me an example of domestic and household waste, despite the fact that we generate it the most. Yes. And we have electronic or digital waste, and we have waste from schools and other public places. Remember, we said that anywhere there is man and anywhere there is man's activity, there is bound to be waste generated. So thank you very much. I'm still going to ask us a couple of questions before we end today's class, but let's quickly move forward. Now, we've talked about waste and we've examined the different kinds of waste. We've looked at the types of waste, we've looked at the sources of waste. Now, the next step is, how do we manage these wastes? How do we manage this waste? Now, I asked about waste management before we started the class, and someone talked about proper disposal and recycling. Yes, those are some of the ways that you can properly manage your waste. Now, if I'm to ask us to define waste management, I'm sure a lot of us will say, okay, the things when you recycle your waste, when you properly dispose your waste and all those things. Yes, you are right. But waste management broadly, it's basically, now let's look at it from this point. Now, as a human being, there are points in our life where we have to manage people or situations. You understand? There are times when we have to manage. As a young person, there are things you have to do. There are things you have to manage to ensure that you get a desired result. As a parent, there are ways you have to train your child to ensure that you get what? The desired results. So those things are also forms of management. So when we are talking about waste management, we are simply talking about, okay, what are those activities that we carry out? What are those actions that we perform? What are those things that we do in order to get the expected or the desired or the optimal response or result from what we consider to be waste? So waste management is all about, okay, when you are talking about waste management techniques, waste management technologies, and all these things, basically what we are just trying to say is that, okay, what are the best ways, what are the best things that we can do to ensure that this thing that we call waste, we get the best out of it? That is basically what waste management is talking about. So everything that you do, every action that you take is geared, it has to be geared towards what? How can I get the best from this thing that is called waste? So when you talk about proper disposal, when you talk about recycling, when you talk about product reuse and all those things, basically all you are trying to do is just to what? Manage your waste such that you get the best out of it. One. Then two, you are also doing that to ensure that that waste does not become a danger to your health or to the environment. I hope we are following and we understand. So now let's look at this. Now, I said something that waste management deals with what? Activities and actions. Please always note that. Waste management is not something you say, I'm managing waste. No, it's something you do. It is active, it is an action. So waste management, they said, is the collection, transportation, processing, or disposal of waste materials, usually ones produced by human activity. Now look at what follows. It says, in an effort to reduce their effect on human health or local amenity. So everything that you do, there has to be an end purpose in sight. And one of the reasons why you properly manage your waste is to do what? To reduce the effect of those wastes on human health and local amenity, which is your environment, scenes and sceneries and everything. So when you do that, you are effectively trying to do what? To manage your waste. Now look at some of those actions that they talked about. They said collection, transportation, processing, or disposal. Now, if you look to your right, you will discover that before collection, you can see the waste collection, you can see the transportation, you can see treatment, and you can see disposal. But before those four, there are three other things that are coming before. Now, that is, you see those three things, that is where we need to come through, basically. Now, this is because most times in most places in the world, waste collection, transportation, processing is usually done by waste management firms and outfits, or even the government. But you see minimization, generation, and storage, temporary storage. Please note, temporary storage of waste is to be done by individuals, is to be done by the people that generate the waste. Now, before you even generate, one thing you have to think about is, how do I minimize this waste? A lot of times, people don't even have any thoughts as to the effect of the volume of waste that they generate. You will see a lot of people just generating waste indiscriminately. Any little thing they've generated waste, they've trashed it. Any little thing they've generated waste, they've trashed it. And that is wrong. That is part of the reason why waste generation keeps increasing. And for waste generation to reduce, we have to consciously and intentionally minimize waste generation. So that is why minimization is important. And don't think that minimization is just at the household level. No. Minimization cuts across everything, from the industries to the commercials, to the markets, to the hotels, everywhere. Everywhere minimization strategies can be adopted. It is very, very important. Now let's look at some of these things that we've talked about. Now, let's start with waste minimization techniques. Now, I remember someone started by talking about recycling. Yes, recycling is a very good way to minimize waste, especially the waste that ends up on the landfill. When you recycle, you effectively reduce the waste that ends up on the landfill. So recycling is a good way to minimize waste, especially waste generation. Now, the next one is source reduction. Now, what does source reduction mean? Basically, source reduction is talking about you reducing your waste from the source. From the source, instead of waiting for a secondary or tertiary manager to manage your waste, you make conscious and determined efforts to reduce your waste from source. Now, that can be through what? It can be through reduction. Something as simple as good housekeeping. Something as simple as good housekeeping would greatly reduce waste from source. Good housekeeping will reduce your waste from source. Process change. Now, this applies to industries in their production. Better process controls, equipment modification, technology change. Those are ways that they can reduce waste from source. But from your homes, good housekeeping is one way to reduce it. Creation of useful byproducts. That is what we call creative reuse under that recycling. Creative reuse means that, okay, you've used this thing. What are brilliant, creative ways you can reuse them, such that you extend the lifespan of that product? Example is maybe when you drink your bottled water and you decide to use it as a storage for maybe your liquid soap or your palm oil or your groundnut oil or something. Those are creative reuse of byproducts of something that is supposed to be waste. Sometimes people have even gone a step ahead to create beautiful beautiful things from all those waste materials. And that is a process we know as upcycling. You will learn more about that when you are taking your recycling class. So please ensure that you don't miss the class because you are going to learn a lot. So on-site recovery and reuse, product modification, those are some of the ways that we minimize waste. Now, in that green box, it says waste minimization is a set of processes and practices intended to reduce the amount of waste produced. You can see that in every aspect of waste management, it is always what? Practices. It's always action. It is always activities, always processes. So waste management requires action. So it's very important for us that after you determine that, okay, I want to reduce my waste, you have to take the step for that to do what? To act on that change. Now, generation. When we talk about waste generation, we are simply talking about, okay, what are those things that we do? What are those things that we do? Now, waste is generated by both human and anthropogenic. Well, human and anthropogenic is basically the same thing. So we can say waste is generated by both natural and anthropogenic activities. So please note, waste is generated by both natural and anthropogenic activities. Living organisms consume materials and eventually return them to the environment in different forms for use. So now you can see that important sentence. It says solid waste is a human concept. It's not by nature, because any waste that nature produces naturally it returns to nature. If the leaves fall to the ground, eventually they will decompose and return back to the soil. Even animal carcass, animal dung, and all those things, they would return back to the soil and the cycle will do what? Continue. But you see that when it comes to humans, we generate waste that cannot return to the soil. So those is a human concept. Now this is collection. Like I said earlier, when we're talking now, I said usually the only ones that are primarily for us is minimization, generation, and storage. Because before they come and collect your waste, you have to first store it somewhere. You can't just leave trash lying all around your room or your environment or your homes. So that process of temporary storage is you keeping that waste in a secure place away from rats and rodents until the proper outfit of firms come to collect your waste. So it's a part of the process of waste management. It is the transfer of solid waste from the point of use to the point of treatment or landfill. So mostly when they collect the waste, it either goes to a place where it gets treated or it goes to the landfill. So that is that about collection. Transportation basically is just talking about the movement, how the waste gets to where it's going from your homes. The moment they come to collect the waste, it has to go from one point to another. Waste transportation deals with that. So maybe whether it's going to the processing facilities or it's going to the landfill, it needs to be transported. This is treatment. Now, treatment just refers to any process that you carry out to manage, to treat, to dispose waste in a safe and environmentally responsible manner. Now, the aim of treatment is basically to reduce the harm caused by waste to human health and the environment. So we generate a lot of waste. Waste treatment is the ways and techniques that waste is being processed is being managed, is being treated, such that it's either useful for reuse or it can go back to the environment in a way that would not harm the environment or human health. So finally, we talk about disposal or landfilling. Now, this is just a direct way of what? Of managing waste or disposing of waste. Basically, you pick it and you dump it in a landfill. But it is very, very important to note that for us to be able to sustain our environment, we need to move from just collecting and disposing to collecting and reusing. We need to find ways to reuse our waste, to reprocess our waste, such that instead of operating a linear form of waste management or a linear form of economy, we start operating a circular one, whereby the waste comes, it's generated, it's processed, and it goes back to being used again, instead of just ending up at the landfill. So finally, let's look at waste management hierarchy. This is the last one we'll be looking at for the class today. Now, when you talk about waste management hierarchy, like the word says, hierarchy, it simply means order. It simply means order, the order in which waste management practices, waste management activities are ranked. Now, they are ranked from least favored option to the most favored option. As you can see, it's a pyramid. It's a pyramid, and you can see it from the base to the top. At the top is the most preferred or most favored option, while at the bottom is the least favored and the least preferred and the least environmentally friendly option. So what waste management hierarchy does is help us categorize. It helps us categorize these actions, helps us categorize these activities in order of favorability, so that whenever we want to make decisions, whenever we want to take actions, we put it at the back of our mind that which is the most environmentally friendly, which is the most environmentally favorable, which is the most environmentally preferred, and which is the least. That way, we can take actions, we can formulate policies, and we can do things that are geared around the most favorable options. So now, if you look at it, we have prevention, we have minimization, we have reuse, we have recycling, we have energy recovery, and finally, we have disposal. Now, I'm going to just talk briefly about these practices and these actions. Now, the first one is prevention. Basically, like the name says, prevention. It simply means you preventing that waste from being generated in the first place. Now, there are actions that you can take. There are things that you can do to avoid waste generation in the first place. Now, let's take, for example, now we are in the 21st century and technology has advanced a lot than how it used to be. For the most part, despite the advancement of technology, a lot of people, a lot of firms, a lot of all these things, they still use some old methods of working, communication. A lot of pen, a lot of paperwork is still going on. But you can prevent some of those waste from being generated at all by utilizing what? The electronic mails and some other tools. By doing that, you are preventing that paper that will be strewn about and would end up constituting waste. So that is one way you can prevent waste. That's just an example. While I'm talking, I would like us to think about other examples for all these activities under the waste management hierarchy. What are those things? What example can you give for waste prevention. Now we move on to minimization. I think we've talked about minimization earlier. They are just activities that you do to ensure that you reduce the waste you generate to the barest minimum. There are times when you cannot escape generating waste. There are times when you have to generate waste. But even when you have to generate those waste, you have to find a way to do what? To minimize your waste generation. It's very important. And that is the second most preferred option. Now, the third one is reuse. Now, even when you generate waste, the first thought on your mind should be, in what way can I reuse this waste? In what ways can this waste be turned into a resource? In what ways can we make this waste no longer waste? And reuse answers that question, because there are a lot of things that you can create from what is called waste. When you try to reuse them, there are a lot of beautiful and new things you can create from your waste. Now, there are some waste that you are unable to reuse, and then that is where recycling comes in. That is where recycling comes in. Now, recycling takes those wastes that you're unable to reuse and it transforms them into new products. So from it being, instead of it going to the landfill or going for disposal, recycling collects those wastes and it transforms them. It makes them valuable again. It increases their value. It reduces the amount of waste that ends up on the landfill, and it promotes environmental sustainability. So that is that. So after recycling, for materials that are not recyclable, because not all materials are recyclable at the moment. So for materials that are not recyclable, the next best thing to do is to try to recover energy from them. We try to recover energy from these materials through various techniques. Now, if all these things fail, if you are unable to use all these techniques to manage that waste, then finally it gets disposed. So you can see all the steps, all the options that are available to us. But most times, after generation, we don't consider any other option other than disposal. So it's very important for us to do what? To know these things so that it can help us during, maybe when we are talking to other people or we are trying to educate them on proper waste management practices, or we are trying to formulate policies for all these things. These are some of the things that should guide our thought process. It's very, very important. And for us to be able to achieve this, it is something that we have to put into practice. When you generate waste, the first thing in your mind should not be to dispose. It should be to follow these steps. It's very important. So, in conclusion, now, like I've been saying since we started, effective waste management is not merely a matter of convenience. It's a fundamental pillar of environmental stewardship and public health. Like I said, it's not just words. It's not just something that we have to do when it's convenient or okay, but it's something that should become a lifestyle. It's something that we should act on, that we should show others, which others need to see, and they need to learn how to properly manage their waste. Because, like it said, it's very important for public health and environmental sustainability. As we face the challenges of burgeoning populations and increasing waste production, we must also acknowledge the opportunities for innovation and progress. There are a lot of things that you can use, all these things we call waste, that we can use them for. So that's why it's very important for us to not miss any class, because we are going to talk about how we can do what? We can further explore this waste and the benefits, not just health or environmental benefits, also economic benefits that they hold for us. So by reducing our own waste, supporting local recycling initiatives, and advocating for responsible policies, we can all play a vital role in shaping a cleaner, more sustainable future. Remember, the key to a brighter tomorrow lies in the conscientious choices we make today. Together, we can transform waste into a resource and safeguard our planet for generations to come. So please let us have this in mind and let us always, always do our best to manage our waste properly. Thank you very much for listening. And these are our partners. Thank you very much. So I'll stop sharing my screen now. If you have questions, you can please let me know. So we've come to the end of the class. So like I said, I asked us to think of examples we can profile for waste prevention, waste minimization, reuse, recycling, energy recovery. So what are some of the things that we feel that is a way for us to, what are other ways that we can think of to prevent waste? Okay, Arias, I'm with you. You can unmute yourself, please.
Okay, thank you very much. So, some of the ways we can actually prevent, some of the ways for waste prevention are purchasing items in bulk to reduce packaging waste. Also,
Okay, that's good.
we should avoid single-use items. I think we should try to repair and maintain items instead of throwing them away. Or we
Thank
should
you.
compost organic waste. That's composting of food scraps, yard waste, and reducing
Yeah,
emissions from landfill. We should, and I think some of the ways for recycling is,
I'm with you.
I
I'm
think
with you.
that one is in progress now. The use of separate bins for
Mm.
separate waste. I mean, the one that has different color for the disposal of kind of waste. So the
Yes,
ones
you
that
are
can
you are
be
quite right.
recycled would be, recycled. And we should for you mentioned energy something. Sorry, can I get that again?
Energy recovery.
Yes, yes. We should also for energy recovery waste. We can. Sorry.
Hello.
Formed. So rather than hello,
I think
you
you went off. You went off a bit there. You were talking
oh hello,
about
can
energy
you hear me?
recovery. Yes, yes.
Yes, yes, yes. I said for energy can be steam energy. We can transform energy for different use and different for different purposes. So I'm talking about waste now that are emitted by industrial houses. That's the flaring of gas can actually
Okay.
be repackaged and can be used as unsold gas for cooking other things. So yes.
It's very. Thank you very much. It's very hard to hear you. I think there is a bit of network glitch there. But from what I can get, you talked about ways that we can properly manage and prevent waste. That's purchasing item in bulk to avoid packaging waste, avoiding single-use plastic,
Yes. Can
composting,
you hear
and
me now,
other.
please?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Okay, so you talk about composting also. Then for the energy recovery, you talk about I think I heard you talk about gas flaring. Am I right? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't get you.
I said for energy recovery, you talked about gas flaring or something.
Yes, I said
Okay,
an
because
energy rather
your
than wasting energy, we can actually transform energy. So I
yes.
gave an example concerning industrial houses.
Oops.
So instead of gas flaring,
Okay. Okay, I think I understand now. You were talking about energy transformation.
we can actually transform that.
Okay, I
Can you hear me,
understand you now.
please?
Yes, I got that. I got that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. Suliat, you can please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ma'am.
I think she's trying to talk about the energy recovery. I think she's trying to
Yeah.
talk about biogas. So,
Okay.
biogas can be generated from maybe cow dung, our poo, and even the domestic waste at home. We can generate them and use them for biogas that can be used to generate even electricity and cooking gas and so many other things. So
True.
I think that's what she's trying to say. Then
Okay.
second
Thank
thing,
you
I
very
think
much.
we should adopt the use of reusable items. We shouldn't be anything. We shouldn't be using, like you said, too much of paper. There are a lot of ways to communicate now, to like the wedding this thing self. Everything can be done online now. You can do your
Yes, true.
IV,
Very
your
true.
anything. It can be online now. You can send invite online. You don't need to print papers, print all these kind of things that generate more waste. No, I think we should adopt the use of reusable items, or we should
An
look
electronic
for
means.
yes, by electronic means. So I
I
think that
understand.
should help too. And
Thank
for
you
the
very
main
much.
problem, we are having, like or like other things, we are still trying to recycle them. But the things that people are not looking into now is that domestic waste. Domestic waste, they think is the end of. They don't give them a second chance anymore. They think end. Is the end
End
of
of
their
end of life of the waste.
uh
Yes.
and those domestic waste now, we can use them to generate biogas. We can generate electricity from biogas that can power a house,
Mm.
generator, anything now. Use of cooking gas that is so expensive now. Hadn't been everyone knows about biogas. We can be using cooking gas free of charge sef. Let me say free of charge, because we are going to be generating all these things to, to produce it. So anyway, we are going there gradually by the
Yeah.
grace of God.
You have you are very right, man. So everything that has been said so far has been correct. So we talked about properly managing our waste, and we've talked about purchasing items in bulk to avoid packaging waste, avoid single use, composting, and I think Madam Suliat also talked about using more electronic means instead of the conventional paper and causing waste, and also about biogas. I know that currently um, biogas technology or biotechnology is something that is actually gaining a lot of attention recently. I know that there are a lot of people that are interested in converting organic wastes into different forms of energy. cooking gas for heat, electricity, and the likes. And I know that in the very near future, it's something that would be achievable. It's something that we really need to explore, because majority of the waste that we generate is actually organic waste. The majority of waste we generate is organic waste. So trying to tap into reusing those wastes for our own benefit would be a step in the right direction. So thank you very much for your input. As to the energy recovery, now you know that I need to explain something. You know that sometimes there are some of these wastes that we generate that are very difficult to recycle. Now, I'm sure during the recycling class, they would give us an insight into the different types of plastics and the ease of recycling. Now, some plastics are easy to recycle, while some are very difficult. Some are almost impossible to recycle. Now, because of cutting cost of production and other things like maybe the strength of packaging and the likes, some companies tend to use some of those plastics that are hard to recycle. You know that we have what is this thing again? We have thermoplast and we have thermosets. Those are the things we'll talk about also in recycling. Now, for the thermoplasts, they are easy to recycle, but the thermosets are very difficult. So those are some of the things. So when it becomes very difficult to recycle some of these plastic materials, instead of just throwing them away or dumping them on the landfill or throwing them in water bodies where they don't get to decompose for at least an average of 450 years, the next best thing to do is to try to recover energy from them in different ways. I have an example. For example, in Nigeria, in Lafarge Cement, I know that they use some of these wastes. The last time we went, they used some of these wastes as an energy source. Some of these wastes that cannot be recycled, they use them as an energy source for their kiln, for their kind of furnace. It's a kind of furnace that they use for their production activities. So they use some of these wastes as like energy source. So they use that as a form of fuel for their kiln. So those are some of the ways that you can recover energy. Even though it's not recyclable, you still find a way to use it to generate what? Maybe it's heat, maybe it's electricity. In one way or another, energy is being tapped from those materials. So those are the ways that we can have energy recovery from our solid waste. So I hope we understand that. Thank you for the flaring one. Instead of flaring the excess gas, well, sometimes the reason they flare the excess gas is because if they don't, it might compromise the integrity of the whole process or the whole system. So sometimes there is gas production that exceeds storage. Do you understand? Sometimes there are the gas production exceeds the storage for one reason or another. And when that happens and there is nowhere to store it, sometimes they need to flare it so that it doesn't damage the integrity of the system. So that's part of the reason why they flared. But you are very, very right. Sometimes instead of flaring these things, we need to look for ways to do what? Package them, store them, repackage them, and do what? Put them out there, such that we don't just waste the gases or just flare them or expose them to the atmosphere. Also, let me mention this. One of the major gas that is produced at landfill is methane gas. Major gas that is produced at landfill is methane gas. And one of the ways that we can reduce the methane production of landfill is through what we've mentioned earlier, through proper management of our organic waste. Because the plastics are not the ones that are producing the methane. It is the organic waste. When they decompose, they produce methane gas. So it's very, very important that in managing our organic waste, we tend to reduce what goes to the landfill, and by extension, the landfill produces less greenhouse gases. I hope we understand. So please, if we have any questions, very quickly, if there are any questions, please let's ask now before we round up the class for today. Okay. Is there any questions before we round up?
Okay, so I have a question actually. And
Okay,
can
please
you
go
hear me?
ahead. I can hear you. I'm okay.
It's concerning landfill actually. I mean that's the dump site.
Okay.
The dump site. So there's so much waste gathered. I mean that's where they dump waste, either for further recycling, for incineration, or for anything, whatever it is for. So the
Okay.
land where the dump site is situated,
Mhm.
I want to know if that land is still reusable or the waste would actually, because I know that in the dump site, I mean those waste will probably leach into the soil to destroy nutrients or some other things. So I just want to know if that land now can be reusable or it's just going to forever be a dump site.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. That's a brilliant question. Actually, the land for the landfill is reusable. It's very much reusable, and there is a process by which it goes, and they do that for landfills or dump sites that have gotten to their end of use. Now, for every dump site or for every landfill, there is a period by which it's supposed to operate. So after it has operated for that number of years and it has come to its end of use, they begin a process of uh, a form of land recovery and rehabilitation. So what they do is they they how do I say it? They rehabilitate the land, they grade it, then they cap it. Now, what capping means basically is covering. So they'll kind of cover the topsoil. They will kind of cover the waste with topsoil. They would temp it down, cover it, cap it, such that by the time you look at that field, you won't even know that there used to be waste on it. So for some, they after they do that, they tend to sometimes they cover it with grass, and they use it for a form of sometimes they use it for a form of park. They use it for parks or gardens. Although in most cases, land such as that, you really cannot build big or heavy structures on it because of the integrity of the land or the soil. But most times they can use it after they do the land reclamation, they can actually use it as a form of park or a form of garden, and you'll be surprised. Trees and plants actually grow well there, so it can be reused very much.
What about the air pollution? The air pollution is causing. It's
The
it's
air
not
pollution
good.
is, well, the thing about it is that part of the process of the land reclamation is also to eliminate um, any form of unpleasantness in terms of the air pollution and everything. By the time they do that rehabilitation and they cap it and everything, it won't give that offensive odor anymore, because they would have sealed the waste and everything. Part of it part of the reason why it gives that offensive odor is because it's allowed to move up into the atmosphere. You understand? So they would, by the time they do the land reclamation, they would cover it. Sometimes, depending on the what they want to use it for, sometimes they cover it with an impermeable layer. Sometimes they cover it with an impermeable layer such that nothing comes up anymore. So concerning the smell and everything, no, it won't smell anymore.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. Any other person? Okay. So I think with that, okay, Olariwaju, I'm with you. Please, you can
Yes, sir.
unmute
Good
yourself.
evening, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. I just want to mention something concerning the question regarding the use of the landfill, like using landfill and
Okay.
on like that. Yeah. At times, it's very very important for us to know what can be used or what can the landfill be reused for, right? We've read series of issues or series of stories about reusing landfill for residential purposes and the implications
No.
of
It
some of
shouldn't be
those.
used for residential purposes mostly. They don't
Yeah,
use it for residential mostly. If they
yeah.
do due
So most
diligence, then they shouldn't do that.
yeah, so most times, most of these dump sites are being reused for are just like let's say sports, golf courts, and on like that, where people will not need to probably have to consume like get anything from the land and on like that to reduce the possibility of getting some residues of the pollutants on those sites, right? So
True.
it's just very very important for us to know that anything that is of let's say high gravity and all like that should not be sited on you know um, dump sites or landfills.
Thank you very much. That's a very brilliant addition. So like I said earlier, the once the land reclamation and rehabilitation has been completed, they usually use it as a form of park or gardens and everything. They don't put structures on it. One, because of the nature of the land, then two, because of the integrity of that land. It's not as strong as your the normal land, because basically what is forming the topsoil is pretty much waste. You understand? So those are some of the things. So mostly, once they do the land reclamation and rehabilitation, all they use it for mostly is just for recreational stuffs like parks, like Olariwaju said, like a golf course and all those things. So thank you very much, Olariwaju, for that input. Thank you very much. Okay. Any questions, please? Okay. So thank you everyone for joining in the class. Thank you very much to everyone who participated in one form or another. Thank you very much. I hope we've been able to learn one or two things from the class. So we'll be ending the class now, and I wish you a very nice day. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe, and thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you too.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.